All join palms. Repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Thanks for showing up. You know, this practice, no matter how long you've been at it, and if you're brand new, then lucky you. Because it's easier when you're brand new. But it really is just a constant starting over every single day. And I stress that over and over and over again to people. And sometimes people believe that, and sometimes they don't. But your life is going to be filled with madness, chaos, disappointment, frustrations, things that could just crush you. I mean, you're here on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, so you probably figured that out by now. But Buddhist practice doesn't mean that that's all going to go away. The reality is, the truth is that that stuff will always be in your life. No matter how Buddhist you are, no matter how many Buddhist things you go to, no matter how many meditations you do, your life is going to be filled with things that are just going to crush you. The question is, how do you respond? And that's where the practice begins. It will never change. And every day we have opportunities to practice. You may have small, minor things that don't go your way. You know, I always talk about the coffee that wasn't made properly, or the traffic you're stuck in, or, you know, your hair not looking so good. Again, I don't have to worry about that so much anymore. Actually, I never worried about that, but there are things, little things, that are not life-threatening. And then there are real heavy things, real important things. No offense to anyone who finds their hair important, right? But there are things that really matter on a big scale. And when those things come crashing down, how you respond is where the practice begins. And the practice, as I said, doesn't change. We have opportunities to practice generosity, opportunities to practice morality, opportunities to practice patience, opportunities to practice diligence, opportunities to practice meditation, and opportunities to apply wisdom to your life, which in essence is practicing the first 5. Every single day, that will happen. What often happens, is anyone here for like the first time, brand new to Buddhism 101? Okay, great. So what often, and Buddhism brand new to those of you who raised your hands, so what often happens to those who are new to Buddhism, and I don't want to put like thoughts into your heads because I've known you all of about 5 seconds, right? Jed, right? And your name? Will. Will. Okay, now I know you both, right? But what happens often to those who are new to Buddhism is people get this idea that like, oh, I'm going to do that Buddhist thing, I'm going to do that meditation thing, and then my life's going to be good. I hate to break it to you. It doesn't work that way. Your life is going to be as much chaos as it's ever been. It's going to be just as maddening as it's ever been. Just as hectic. Just as many problems. Buddhism doesn't solve any of that. What it gives you tools for is the way to face them. And that's where this practice is life-changing. And that's why I say you're starting over every single day. Because regardless of what the conflict or difficulty or challenges are, you have to start there. And just when you think you're like, I got this figured out, I'm good, boom, crashing down. And then everything's good, and then crashing down. And that's life. And we repeat that cycle every single day for the rest of our lives. So practice is important because, right? And I can only, as always, speak from personal experience. But when I look at what I have to face every day, and the difficulties and challenges and conflicts and responsibilities, if I didn't have a practice, could never do it. So when I talk about this practice changing someone's life, it changes your life because you learn how to deal with all of the conflict and difficulty that you face. And you're able to just see it as temporary moments, impermanent moments. And here we are. And now we're sitting. And now we're breathing. And everything is beautiful. So, in Buddhism, we call that beginner's mind. Which is why when you're a beginner, you're like, oh, cool, because I don't know what I'm doing anyways. The longer you do this stuff, there's kind of this false impression that you might think, bless you, you might think, well, I've been at Buddhism for, 30 years. So you might think you know something right now. Go one day without getting pissed off, and you realize you don't get it. So always starting over. Great book, Zen Mind, Beginner Mind by Suzuki Roshi, but it really is that beginner's mind practice that tells you every moment, every day, you're starting over. Every breath, you're starting over. So regardless of what chaos or difficulty you've had in the past, none of that is with you right now in this moment. It's gone. Done. So this is where we learn to appreciate the present moment and say, here I am. I'm alive. I'm breathing. I got food to eat, place to sleep, a couple people that maybe like me. I'm good. Right? What more do you actually need? So with that, we'll sit. For those who are joining for the first, or joining virtually, I guess, and for the first time, welcome. But for those joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. We'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things I'll tell you before we begin, especially for those who might be sitting for the first time. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. You're not going to think nothing. You're not trying to empty your mind. Your mind will wander and race. I'll say things periodically to remind you that you're lost in thought or to wake you up and bring you back to the present moment. Don't expect anything. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means you got to move. You'll hear sounds. These are not distractions, not disruptions. This is just life. Life is filled with chaos. And so this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, here or home, wherever you are, just slightly pushing the stomach forward, relax the shoulders. If you're on a bench or chair, same thing. Just trying to sit up straight, relaxing the shoulders. Hands are on the knees or lap, whatever's comfortable. I will guide us as we begin. We'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. We should be done by about midnight. Starting with your eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed, whatever's comfortable. Start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought. Return to breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgment from your practice. Just sitting. Breathing. Keeping the mind alert. aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. Yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, resting, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize whatever you feel now, if it's quiet, calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's nothing to do with anything I said. It's not from how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakening. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, but began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape. It's direct perception into the present moment. And the present moment is filled with difficulty. It's also filled with wonderful, beautiful, happy moments. But nobody shows up here because of all of those. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, Learning to be kind to yourself and everybody you encounter every moment of your life. And therefore, regardless of how people are towards you, your response is the same. Your thoughts, your feelings are the same. The way you respond to this practice of sitting and breathing is the same. No matter what conflict you are facing, your heart is open, your mind is open, and you're just with what's occurring. Most people get triggered very quickly. I mean, absolute strangers you don't even know who dare come into your lane on the freeway trigger you for like an hour. You know? People you don't even know who just look at you in a way you don't like. Or say one little thing, you don't even know who they are, you're never going to see them again, but they just make some little comment about you. And it just ruins you. This practice is just observing all of that, watching your emotions as they arise, and being with that. And that's it. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything that's on your mind. And again, for those who are joining virtually, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free. There's a chat box somewhere on your screen. Feel free to say hello, put any questions or thoughts you have there. I'll do my best to respond. But we'll open up and we use the rest of our brief time this evening for questions, meditation, Buddhist practice. Anything you're sitting, yes, there you go. What's up, Katie?
Using your tapping example.
Using my what example?
Your tapping.
Oh, yeah.
So this happened to me yesterday, and I was trying to park, and I saw a spot, and then I was like going to turn to get into it, and then someone behind me was like stupid, and I was like, oh. And normally, like back in the day, like a few days ago, I probably would have been like, oh, that's my parking spot. But I was like, huh. And I felt that rise. I was like, oh, that was my parking spot. But I was like, no, it wasn't. It was just a parking spot, and who knows? And I caught myself, and I was aware. But then I got caught up in awareness, and then I was like not upset or whatever. But then I still couldn't stop thinking about it. I was like telling myself, like, oh, maybe they had somewhere to go, or maybe they were doing this, and it's not that big deal. And I wonder what they're doing today. Like,
Right.
And they ended up being in my yoga class.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, they were going to yoga. But how do you? My question is, how do you recognize it and you stop a negative reaction of some sort or whatever, but then you still keep thinking, it's still on your mind?
Yeah. And this was how many days ago?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
And I'm still talking about it.
I was
It's still
getting
on my
there.
mind.
Yeah, and here it is Tuesday, 7 o'clock, and it's still in your mind.
Yeah.
So I know I always talk about don't look at Buddhism and this practice as progress, because I think when we are looking for progress, we're setting ourselves up for failure, where this is just a daily practice, and sometimes we're going to do really well with certain things, and sometimes not so well. So I don't like to put progress out there typically, because like I said, it sets us up for like these bars we're setting and trying to achieve. But I do think that's one example of where the recognition that like, wow, you know, a few days ago, a week ago, a month ago, whatever, a year ago, that would have really pissed you off. And you didn't get pissed off, you defaulted into it's just a spot, and you're continuing to fixate on it. But at least you weren't pissed off that they took your spot, right? So the question of how, that would be me, no different than me saying to you, how did you get to a place where you didn't get pissed off by it? Do you have an answer to that?
Repetition of awareness.
Repetition of awareness. So the answer ultimately to your question is the same thing, right? It wasn't like there was some Buddhist sutra in some other language that you read that told you to not be angry when someone takes a parking spot. It just occurred. And doing the same practices that you've been doing day in and day out, one day someone will take the parking spot and you'll move on and you won't spend the next 36 hours thinking about it. But there is no trick. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that?
I thought you were gonna say.
See, and by now you know my answer, so you really don't even need to be here anymore. Yeah, a lot of times I think that, and it makes sense, I get it. We're just so conditioned, not just Western culture, all cultures really, we're so conditioned to like steps to get something to happen. And if there's a question we want to answer, 1 + 1 = 2, we want it to just simple. And I don't find practice that way. It's not this linear thing. It's just always, you're always evolving and learning and growing. And who knows, you may tomorrow have the exact same situation occur. And all of a sudden you're like, now I'm angry. Because maybe, not to try to ruin your wonderful story, but maybe when this happened, you were in a really happy, pleasant mood. And maybe you weren't late. Maybe you were even early to yoga. But let's say the same thing occurred and you had a bad morning and you were running late. And the same thing happened. Would you have been just as kind and pleasant to let them take the spot? Maybe, maybe not. So you'll see. But only you will be able to respond to those questions with continued practice and awareness. Yeah. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
So I can really relate to what she was saying about being triggered. When I first started coming here after being in a silent stillness practice, I was like, oh my God, these chairs make so much squeaky noise and people come in late and I'm so annoyed. And so I stayed away for a while.
Yeah.
And so tonight I'm back and I'm just like, oh, it's just a sound.
Just a
I
sound.
didn't have a judgment about it. I wasn't angry about it. It's like when a car goes by, I would get mad because who was that making that noise when I'm trying to meditate? It's just like, and why is it different today? I have no idea.
Sure.
Will it be different another day? Who knows?
Sure.
I don't know. But today it just felt kind of good to let go of all of that judgment and all that stuff. So.
I pay people every week to come in late just to see how you're all doing with that stuff, It's a sign-up sheet in a little secret place that if you want to be the person who gets paid to come in late. And here's the thing, and we've talked about this in various ways over time, but, and for me, having a similar Zen practice, although different, the danger always, and for anyone who is, specifically into the Zen practice, the danger of the Zen practice, and solely that practice, in my opinion also, is that in that practice, we can get stuck in thinking that there is a perfect little Zen box. And everything must be silent and straight and neat and orderly and bowed proper. Like we can create constructs and boxes of perfection and call it Zen Buddhism. For me, one of my greatest practices for the last 17 years is knowing that no matter how many times I teach people how to put these cushions back, they're never going to be done properly. Ever. Like I will die and people still won't know how to put the cushions back. You don't need to apologize. Marcy just looked at me and said, I'm sorry. Not even hands-on train you. I'm just a bad teacher. I'm sorry. Right? See, I never call myself a teacher unless I say I'm a bad teacher. But so even in that world, we can get very fixed on. And what this is really about, coming out of Buddhism, out of Zen, out of all of that stuff, is just watching in your day. You wake up each day and you have a plan. Even if the plan is just to get up and go pee, right? And then it's to have breakfast or whatever it is, you have a plan. Short-term, intermediate, and long-term plan. Your plans are never going to work how you expect them to. Once in a while, they might even work out better than you expected them to. So the question is, how are you in your response to your plan that will work out completely differently than what you thought? And sometimes it'll work out how you wanted it to. But sometimes it won't. It's just that way. So how do we respond to life as it gets thrown at us? Yeah. Hi.
Is there such a thing as manifestation in the Buddhist practice?
Manifestation? Yeah, it's always, it's a question that comes up every so often, especially around kind of this, new, not so new anymore, but 2023, new age, spiritual, woke, like Eckhart Tolle, blah, blah, blah. He's wonderful, by the way, don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking him completely, right? But I don't care how much I sit here and just hope and dream that red Ferrari pulls up outside and I can just go get into. As long as I sit here and try to manifest that red Ferrari, it ain't ever showing up. So to your question directly, does manifestation play into Buddhist practice? Not in the way that I think you're asking about manifestation, and that I think the way manifestation is used in kind of a modern spiritual way. But with that being said, I do think that there are aspects to manifestation that do occur and are very important in Buddhist practice, meaning that everything that happens in the future, everything, I create. So in that way, I could create a red Ferrari showing up out there 1,000 different ways, 1,000,000 different ways. Some of them legal, some of them illegal, But regardless, I could create that happening. But not in this power of manifestation, but in a way where I am becoming very mindful and aware of every thought, every word, and every action, and what that leads to. And so the beauty of this, which is understanding our karma, which is action, is that I can create my entire life. I have already. Actually, I don't even want to say I can create, because that makes it sound as if it's an option. I am creating my entire life. I've already created my entire life. And it got me right here. Look how good I did, right? It got me here. So now what am I going to create next? That's my karma, yeah.
Well, related to this question that she had, this nowadays I hear a lot that.
The know what?
Nowadays I hear this phrase a lot, ask the universe.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
You don't really want to know.
Exactly.
Yeah, surrounded by constant groups of people that are always asking the universe for things.
How do you ask?
I'm just processing how I'm going to respond to this. So here's the thing, right? I use this example, a lot of you know me forever. I never talk about money in here or anything like that, right? Here I am talking about red Ferraris and money. But years ago when we were trying to get this place, 7 years ago, a lot of you know the whole story, right? And we had to raise a lot of money to buy this place 7 years ago, right? And no matter how many times I asked the universe, it wasn't going to happen that way. And somebody eventually said to me specifically, they said, you should just ask the universe for it. And I said, I asked the universe, and the universe told me I need to work my ass off. So that's my response to asking the universe. I don't dump on people when they post it and share it and say it, unless they ask it here on a Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Ask the universe all you want. But then what? Ask the universe. What is what does that even mean? Since you brought it up, what is that? I'm going to ask the universe. The universe will provide. It's like that old George Carlin skit where he's talking about saving the planet. If you've never seen that one, Google George Carlin saving the planet. He's basically talking about how arrogant are we to think that we, as these tiny little human beings, the planet's been around like 1 billion years, and yet we think we're going to save it. I'm not saying don't recycle. But, asking the universe, I'm just not a fan of that. The Buddhist practice, the teaching is about karma. And karma is things happen. It is the law of cause and effect. So we could ask the universe for one thing, but we got to do stuff. That's the reality. At least from this Buddhist lens. We have to do stuff. And what we do creates what occurs. That's just how it goes, in my understanding of Buddhist practice. Yeah. That's great, because in all these years, nobody's ever asked me that, and now I'm really glad they never did. What else? Yeah.
So, when we like encounter like more powerful, like primal emotions in situations like fear. So I'll give an example. Like I had my son's born with a heartbeat back. We're going through third surgery. They're pretty soon. And there's obviously fear and anxiety in that situation. And the third time around, it's you realize like in the past, those fears have made it almost impossible for me to be present in the thing that's most important, which is just for my kid.
Sure.
Right. And so what are maybe some things that like a practice may help us with when we're encountering fear?
Fear. Yeah, it's and this is all you said. I just want to make sure I heard you clearly. This is all the third was super recent, right? Like currently.
So, yeah, it'll be coming up later this month.
Okay.
And
how
this
old?
will be, he's 15.
Okay,
So
yeah.
He's a trooper. He's probably less worried than his mother.
Yeah, understood. So here's the thing around this situation or any, and those are, that's as heavy as it gets. I mean, I don't have children. I can't imagine anyone's experiences ever. But there are kind of, in my mind, a little category of things that are, that's as heavy as it gets, for me, the response is still kind of the same. And that one, I'll share this first before I forget. There's an acronym for fear that I heard years ago that I loved, and it's false evidence appearing real. I don't know if you've ever heard that. And I've always found that really beautiful because it allows us to understand that in Buddhist practice, what Buddhism is helping us do, it's not changing or fixing things, as I pointed out earlier, it's helping us become aware. And in this awareness of fear, we are realizing that we are afraid that something could happen that in that moment is not happening. It doesn't mean it couldn't, but we're afraid of something that might happen. This practice, your question is what is something you can do in the moment, is the practice of concentration using the sensation of breath, we call that meditation, in that situation, right? A lot of people who panic, airplanes, a lot of times people talk about having anxiety flying. So it's breath in, breath out. You're going into procedure, your son's starting the procedure, the surgery, breath in, breath out. You're focused on present moment. You're focusing on gratitude. You're focusing on appreciation. You're focusing on joy. You're focusing on the smile. You're focusing on how your son is not afraid and you and the mother are panicked, right? So you're finding things in the present moment to focus on. Because in that present moment, your fear is not occurring. Do you see how it's so much easier for me to say this than to actually do it? So let me just point that out. It's like, oh yeah, honey, I'm good. I went tonight and I got it all figured out. I'm not afraid anymore. So this also, like everything else, is a process. But coming back to using concentration, what we call meditation, on present moment. Breath, gratitude, smile, right? Those types of things. And the other part, I think, really around fear that is helpful is that the practice of, for me, one of the most beautiful practices within Buddhism was surrendering this idea of control, which is what so many of us are trying to do our whole lives. And just because I say this doesn't mean we're going to stop. But to understand that so much of our fear and anxiety is tied to our desire, and Buddha taught that craving and desire causes suffering. He said there are healthy cravings, healthy desires, right? The desire to have your son healthy is a beautiful desire. The desire to suffer less is a beautiful desire. But these desires that we cling to cause tremendous suffering. And the desire to try to control outcomes causes tremendous suffering. So the beautiful practice of recognizing in situations that you can impact, if you have some element of control to change the outcome, then you can. If you have no element of control, then you can't. Either way, it's out of your hands. I was almost going to say it's in the hands of the universe, right? But it's out of your hands. And so that's where the surrendering of control says, he's here. He's 15. What a beautiful and crazy journey it's been to this point. And I'm gonna love him in this moment because that's what he wants. That's what kind of why I asked at age, if it's 2 years old, 15, a different story. At 15, he doesn't want mom and dad freaked out and panicked and anxious. He wants you just loving him and smiling him and being present with him. And that's, I think, the practice of generosity. That's what you can give in that moment. It's just him seeing you not afraid. So, yeah, we'll go there and then here. Is that?
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Okay, thanks. When is the procedure? Sorry.
It'll be this Friday.
Okay.
I was wondering, and I've been to groups where this has been discussed, but from what you just said, to build on that, what if it's anger? And I feel like I should know, but I would love to hear you kind of like, what should you do with that anger besides recognize it?
Yeah. So for me as a practitioner, fear, which was not good as a child, I never had to face. So it's really hard for me to connect intimately with what fear is like. Fear and anxiety and panic was never my thing. Anger, that one I got, right? And so for me, the practice of anger was really recognizing a couple things. One, understanding deeply, I touched on this very quickly earlier, impermanence. When we feel anger, and however we feel it, right? If our heart's racing, our fists, get tight, whatever that feeling is, recognize it. Take some breaths and understand the impermanent nature of all phenomena, all emotions. It will pass. What typically happens in anger, this is actually, I haven't told the story in a while. There was a kid years ago at KPBS, we were doing meditation there. I was going in every Monday, and he was 20. He was a college student, an intern. And we'd done meditation for 3 weeks. Right, he had done meditation for 3 weeks. He came in on like the 4th week and he was like, Jeff, I figured out how this stuff can help me. And I said, how's that? And he said, well, I was at a party Friday night and this guy was sitting on my girlfriend and I got really angry. And I realized I was probably going to get into a fight. I should take some deep breaths and walk away. I said, Cole, that's great. What happened? He said, I punched him. I looked at him and I just laughed. And I said, again, congratulations, that's progress. He's like, progress? I got into a fight. I said, yes, but you noticed there was a moment. There was a gap that was created. You recognized the anger. You started to see the anger, feel the anger, and the thought went through your head, I should step away. You didn't, but you knew you had another option. And for me, it comes back to, it's not, getting through anger is not another book on how to cut through anger. It's not another sutra on how to cut, those are Buddhist teachings on how to cut through anger. It's seeing anger and stepping away from it that occurs from cultivating a very genuine, daily, sincere meditation practice, where you learn to watch your thoughts, which become your emotions. These are the triggers that we watch in the meditation practice. Whatever the thought is, happy thought, angry thought, sad thought, joyful thought, they're all just temporary thoughts flying through, which trigger emotions. And the more we practice training the mind Again, for those of you who think meditation is like some escape to get all peaceful, it's not. You're not meditating to escape. You're not even meditating to feel good. So get over that in your heads, please. You're meditating to become aware of what the F is going on up here. And if you can do that, then you can see this is anger. Step away and watch it. And that, like everything, takes time and practice. So, hope that's helpful. Yeah.
And I guess off of that, with temptation, kind of the same question on the Buddhist practice.
Yeah.
An alcoholic reaching for the bottle and they know they shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
What are some tools or tricks in the practice that will help with that?
Yeah. Man, I wish, again, it's a very similar theme here. You know, the fear, the anger, the addiction, the craving, it is all tied to those emotions and the thoughts. Short term, right? Since you're not going to be healed in one sitting. Short term, find an anchor. Again, coming back to anger, when I started this practice 20 years ago, and I remember I got a set of mala beads, I had them in my hand. I would wrap them around my hand, and when I would get angry, I would make a fist. Because I just used to like to punch things and people. And so that's what I did. I made a fist. And when I made a fist, I grabbed the mala bead. And the mala bead triggered peace, calm, tranquility, breathe, get over it. I was still angry. I was still pissed. But it triggered something else, right? So putting kind of triggers, healthy triggers, safety nets in place, right? Years ago, I had a friend, let's see if I can even make this make sense, but he'd gone through again, long time ago, gone through a hard breakup, and when he would drink, he then wanted to call her. We all knew that was going nowhere good. And so I told him, pull up your phone, and in where her name is, put my number in. Because at 2 a.m. when he's drunk, he's not thinking about that. He just sees her name. And you know whose phone rang? Mine. And I'm like, dude, go to sleep. And he's like, oh. So you gotta like put, the crazy thing is people, especially, I shouldn't say this, but addicts will go to any length to get anything. You're pretty creative people. You can create barriers for yourself also. In time, again, it is the same thing. Meditation, back to breath, present moment. The addiction, the craving is coming from a thought, right? There's chemical imbalances. There's a lot going on there. So I don't want to make it sound as just as simple as, oh, just breathe and you'll be good. There's a lot there. But in time, you can begin to recognize potentially that when that craving is there and it's strong, you can come back to breath. Ultimately, the breath is your best trigger and your anchor because it's always there. But that's going to, it's going to take a little bit of time. And then it is also, to some extent, and each person is different, so I'll just show that as an example. Again, for me as a practice, when I began to really change how I was living my life, I spent about 2 years. I didn't spend any time around the friends I used to hang out with. I didn't go to any of the places I used to go to. Like, I literally had to isolate myself because I didn't trust myself with those people or in those environments. So for 2 years, I built a safety net around me while I began to practice to where I felt I could actually maybe go around these people again. And then when I did, then I just thought I was better than they were. And that's also not a healthy practice. Because then you're judging them for the same shit you were doing 3 days ago. Right? So it's a process. Like, I'm all Buddhist now. You guys are still doing that? Sorry. Vegas trips were off for sure. But so you start to kind of see, like, hey, if this is what I want to not do, then I probably should change what I'm doing and where I'm going and what I'm talking, who I'm talking to, who I'm spending time with, what I'm looking at, like creatively change things to minimize the simplicity of just drinking or using or whatever the addiction is. you know? It doesn't mean you can isolate yourself and still find a way, don't get me wrong, but you're kind of like putting in some safety nets until you've like become fully awakened, and then you can just do it on your own, you know? It takes about 7 years for that, by the way. So I don't know if that's helpful at all. Just keep at it, you know, one day at a time, as they say, and ultimately, I think I'll just close with this thought, like all of these questions around fear, around any sort of addiction, around anger, so much of this comes back to the way that we are judging ourselves. Fear, maybe not so much. Fear is a little bit different there, because it's less about us in that situation. But it's really comes down to, can we just stop and be kind and gentle to ourselves? Can we just love ourselves? Can we just forgive ourselves? Can we recognize that we've done things that we shouldn't have done and learn to embrace that and vow and do our best to not do these same things? And if we can find love and appreciation and gratitude for ourselves, then we're less likely to do these things that lead to chaos. So, all right, anything else before I close? All right, so we'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. All right, a few quick announcements before you all head out from our Dharma Bum host, Eddie. And we are looking for a couple more Dharma Bum hosts, specifically right now, Monday night. So if anybody, you would come 30 minutes early and stay about 15 minutes late, and you get to do this. Let me know if you want to do Mondays.
It's really cool.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm tonight's host, Eddie. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 5 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. I'll get these. If a few people could stay to close and latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again.
And New Year's, if you've never done a silent and sober New Year's, we'll be here New Year's, 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 11:30 for midnight meditation. It's up on the website, but we'll be here on New Year's. And all of our schedule stays the same, Christmas, New Year's. It doesn't close, so we're here. Thanks all.
Hi, beautiful.